This is a really casual hour. How we do things is pretty different. So I think that will appeal to different people in the group that are here today. My name's Britni Eisenmann. I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology. While I was in the middle of getting my degree, I started my first consultancy called Gen Elevate. I opened it up just focusing on onboarding. I eventually expanded to employee engagement. And then I started marketing around retention because I realized nobody really has an employee engagement budget. So I about killed my company by going down that lane. So I started marketing retention. And that's how I was getting clients. So I could actually do the employee engagement work. And it was still very often early tenure was what I was looking at, still the onboarding space. About a year and a half ago, I met the creator of a model. We put one of my clients through the model as a case study. I learned so much that I decided to help him get the model out of his head and into the world. So 2022 has been all about research and development for me, kind of figuring out what is our offering, how do we get this, who needs it, things like that. So it's been a weird year as far as I'm not just doing client work, we're also developing what we're going to be offering clients. I live in the Fort Wayne area. I am married to a husband. I have 2 kids, elementary, middle school aged, and a very adorable but very dumb dog as well that we love very much. So that's me. Dr. Patty, I will hand the mic to you.
My name is Dr. Patty Delgado. I'm from far west El Paso, Texas. We are probably the only city that borders 2 countries and 2 states all at the same time. So I am on the border between New Mexico and Texas, and then of course US and Mexico. So we are called the Sun City. I, as Britni, am an industrial organizational psychologist and the founder and CEO of my strategic advising firm called the Bridgify Group. The work that we do is really around 3 main pillars. First, the Bridgify Group, we are advanced researchers and research translators. And I can go into what that means later on. But the big part of the Bridgify Group is translating and adopting scholarly research into practical application. So we bring the world of scholarly information into the world of the practitioner, and we marry them together, which makes an amazing set of information, decision-making abilities, and strategy building. And so I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more if anybody's interested. The second part of the Bridgify Group is we are starting and opened an institute called El Puente Institute, which in Spanish, puente means bridge. So it kind of comes in line with Bridgifying, the Bridgify Group. And El Puente Institute is a specific institute that focuses on the Hispanic and Latino workforce. So we have a team of highly qualified experts, Latino, Hispanic experts, all PhDs that advise and develop organizational recruitment and retention strategies for the Hispanic Latino workforce. And so we are involved in a lot of research right now. We do a leadership development program for emerging and executive Latinos in organizations. And we also do a very unique leadership development program for non-Hispanic leaders to better understand the Hispanic market. So, I mean, we have numbers, our Hispanic market numbers are very high as the first and only minority group, largest minority group in the workforce. So we do encourage organizations to look into the recruitment and retention strategies. The last part of our group and of what the Bridgify Group does, and this has all evolved over these past 2 years of being in business. So I'm also happy to go over how that happened. Like Britni, I started with one particular focus in my consulting firm and then now has evolved into some other things. But the last part of our group is we are currently establishing a think tank of IO psychologists that will be doing continuous research and translating the research for organizations and leaders to be able to buy from us, get advising from us. And this group of think tankers, we're calling them bridge builders, will be interns. And it's really to help advance the IO field, one, because we are kind of in this growth stage as an IO field. And then it's also so that we can quickly and purposefully provide this research out into the practitioner world. So those are kind of our 3 pillars in the Bridgify Group. And I'm happy to discuss and any questions of how it started and how it's evolved and why it's evolved. I think that's a big part of opening your consulting firm, is really being sure of what lane do you want to be in, What expert do you want to be known as? And so that's been an evolution for our organization. So happy to go into more detail how that turned out. But that is who we are. And most of my team are PhDs and doctorates and IO psychologists. And so it's just great work and super excited for 2023 as well.
You are doing a lot of stuff that I did not know about yet.
I know it's evolving, as we're saying.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty of owning your own consulting firm, is you can create it to your passion. Of course, being Latina, I'm all about enhancing our own community as well as, the way that we are perceived from the outside world. So yeah, that's the beauty about having your own firm.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Okay, our first question came in. It's a two-parter, so I'll give you the first part.
Okay.
How did you get started with the Bridgify group?
This is a great question, and one that as individuals that are looking to go down this path to keep in mind. So I was in a particular time in my life where I was just graduating with my doctorate. I knew that afterwards I wanted to do something more with that. And so it just seemed for me in my life, family situation, and then my professional goals actually were in alignment. That's not always the case though when you're starting your own business, and that's okay as well. For me, it was somewhat in an alignment. My husband is retired from the military and things like that. So it really worked out. And during my doctorate dissertation phase and that whole long period of time of researching, I fell in love with research. And I knew that there was so much information that us as academics are pulling from databases that nobody in the practitioner world is using. We use a lot of Deloitte and McKinsey's information, Harvard Business Review, which is all wonderful and they're doing amazing work. But we're leaving out the millions of other researchers and academics that are constantly publishing studies and information, and nobody's tapping into those. So there is a pretty good statistic that we use with any of our clients, and we explain to them there's a 16-year gap between the time that research is published to the time that it's actually put into practice. And that's 16 years in the health and science field. And so they're very much advanced compared to corporate America. So I knew that my passion was to bridge research and practice. I'm a practitioner at heart. I fell in love with research. And so my business became that passion of bridging research and practice. And so I advise you all, and that didn't come out right away, right? It took time for me to think, what do I really want to spend all my time doing? Because this is very consuming, and I'm sure Britni can speak to this. Owning your own business is very consuming from all aspects, from your professional life to your personal life to your family life. So I knew that it had to be something that I was very, very much dedicated to and passionate about bringing to the outside world. So I did spend time thinking about it, and that's how the Bridgify group came to be. I did a lot of beforehand work with a branding expert. And that's not always what you have to do. This is just, again, what I did. A branding expert that asked me very very deep questions, like, tell me what you want to do when you wake up every morning. Think about that. Let's discuss it. We went through this whole rigmarole, back and forth. And so that really did help kind of bring out what my business was going to be, what it's representing, what it was going to look like as far as like my logo, colors, the image, right, the reputation. And so a lot of that very upfront worked, I think, really escalated and really solidified how I wanted to develop my business. So as a researcher, I say, do your research before you start your business. Look at your competitors. There's a couple of people doing evidence-based practice, which is what I do, but not quite at the level that I'm now doing it or reinvented it to be. So I find myself in a good niche. So that's another thing, is finding yourself in a niche. Find out what are people doing and what are people not doing that you can fill in that gap.
I will share a little bit how I started both consultancies that I've been in now. The first one, I was still in school, not expecting to go into consulting. I thought, and actually the reason that I sold my husband on putting me through getting a master's degree was, I'm going to graduate like 2 years and then I'll be making like $80,000 minimum as soon as I get out. So that's how I sold it to him. Halfway through, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start a business. I'm actually going to take $2,000 of our money and I'm just going to start this business. So this actually, the way I did it is a good indicator of how Dr. Patty and I are different. I am not as careful. And so I fall on my face a lot. Um, and I really love starting new scary things. And that can be a big problem because I'm bruised and bleeding all the time as an entrepreneur until I
It's
kind
also
of,
a wonderful attribute because I don't take very good risks. So I believe I've lost some opportunities because I've sat on it like, oh my God, I got to research all, so yeah, I think there's a balance between that. So
yeah,
you have great stories here with both of us.
yeah. Yeah, so I had that business so about 3 years. And then when I found the model creator, I once I saw what the model could do, it felt unethical for me to do anything but help him get the model out into the world because I saw how much good it could do. So I put my first business to the side and we started Stokefire, which is the organization I now have. And since like June, we've been doing market research and development and absolutely being way more thorough than I was when I was cowboying it on my own. Really figuring out who's going to see us as competitors, figuring out, are we creating our whole own field or are we in a couple different fields? Like what are we as we figured out what we were bringing out to the world? Yeah, it's a much slower way to build a business, but you're going to be more firm once you get there. There was a second part to that question that I want to bring up before we go to more questions, but we have some more too. Patty, can you kind of say in general, for the most part, how clients have found you or how you've gotten clients?
Tip number one, right? I think to kind of recap this, our first question is really think about your passion. Think about, are you the risk taker? Are you too much of a non-risk taker? Where do you stand? There is a really good assessment called Kolbe. It's Kolbe. Ricky, I see you're nodding your head. Yeah, because Kolbe was also another kind of driver to direct me on where I wanted my business to be. It kind of tells you where your cognitive abilities are. So it's not personality based or emotionally based. And it kind of tells you where does your energy, what type of activities really drain your energy and which ones really are the ones that you should be engaging in most of the time. So it's called Kolbe, Kolbe. And it's like $50, I think, or $60, the Kolbe Index A. The more you know about yourself, also the better that you would be able to coordinate your own consulting firm. But the way that I started gaining clients was really talking, networking. I was constantly meeting with people, and I still do meet with a lot of people all the time. Each time I met with them, I would refine how I was asking or describing my business. I created what is called a capabilities briefing, which is kind of like a description of who you are, when do people seek you? I'm part of an amazing business development organization called Bold Haas. If you haven't heard of it, Angelique Roers is the CEO of this business development group. They are amazing. And I stepped into her world accidentally, really. And her training and her support with her community has also helped me find clients and kind of gave me that, what she calls a CEO mindset. And so there's a lot of work that she does. So it's called Bold Haas, Haus. So I worked with them as well. So I did a lot of investment in myself initially. And that's how I started better identifying who I was and then being able to better speak to individuals what I do. And so with that speaking, I was able to gain clients and started off pretty well. My first year, I made about 60,000 the first year. And so now we're just evolving and growing and kind of, just changing, being very nimble as we're moving along. One of Angelique's biggest her takeaways is follow the money. So I always look for the money, like, okay, what's happening in the workplace? How does my business integrate with what's happening and what leaders need? And so constantly kind of strategically thinking ahead like that. So I think I've been able to with serendipity, being able to kind of align myself with the right people. And so aligning yourself with the right people is another way of gaining clients.
I would say, especially as I've started out with both organizations, word of mouth tends to be the most valuable. People that already know who I am and what I care about. Talking on social media helps. Speaking is, oh my word, such a great way to get leads. If you I will speak for free if the people in the audience are my target market. Like I'll happily build you some kind of training or workshop because I should be able to capture at least 10% of the people in the room as some sort of lead afterwards, that they'll come up to me, and that then I can get a meeting with them afterwards. Speaking, yeah, I think similar to you, Dr. Patty, has been a good one for me. Consistency, I think, is just really helpful. If, like whatever you choose, I just do LinkedIn. I don't really do much else. And I just try to stay consistent. I have had one client that found me on LinkedIn, but I have had a ton of people come up to me. And while they were connected to me through someone that I knew, they would say they've been watching me on LinkedIn. And I'm like, hey, you could hit like the thumbs up anytime. Like, where have you been? And they'll like rattle off the last like 6 months of stuff I posted. So people are watching you, even when it does not look like it at all online. I've never had a good website. When I started my first consultancy, I decided it wasn't worth paying, that I would do it on my own. And I just spent, I think it was 93 hours in the end to figure out how to build a website. And it wasn't good. Right now, what I have is like the skin and bones landing page. It looks good, but it doesn't really say much. So I've had some consultants say, you don't need a good website to get clients, and others are horrified by what I've put out in the world as far as the websites. So I don't know, but relationships, whether you're speaking and you can show them that you know what you're talking about and you care about what they're hurting and who you know, those have been the most successful for me. Chelsea says, I've been wanted to be a consultant for 7 years and have been developing my business plan for 6 months. Awesome. I definitely do not take risks. Yeah. It's easy to get stuck in the development mode. Do you agree, Dr. Patty?
Yes, and that can be what they call a bomb in your developing of your consultant for. Yes, is you can spend a lot of time there. What are my colors? What should my logo look like? What is this? What is that? When ultimately get on the phone and talk to people about what you do. That is the biggest key. And, we talk about different bombshells, like people spend a lot of money on websites. I'm with you, Britni, like a lot of money on websites initially. And then really the website's good. And you could go with a small one pager or something a little bit more intricate. But if you spend time in any of these activities, posting on LinkedIn, doing a newsletter like that, newsletters will drain you out as a consultant big time, right? Unless you have someone else doing them for you, great. But remember, you only have like 12 hours in the day to work. So you really have to be strategic about where you're putting your time. So newsletters, social media, all of that is good. But the biggest bang for your buck that's going to get you money is getting on the phone and talking to people, making appointments. I try to make at least 4 to 5 sales calls a week. And that's probably a little bit according to my other colleagues that are making a lot more money in consulting. They probably do more. But with my time and where I'm at with my business, just to talk to people to say, this is who I am, this is what I do. Always ask, is there somebody else that you know that might take it, would be good for me as a consultant. But talking to people about your business is where you're going to make the money. People, like Britni says, it's kind of a hit and miss on LinkedIn. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder how people have like 1,000 likes on like this very simplistic message. And I'm like, okay, I should have thought of that. Like, I don't know. Unless you have an amazing social media person that's on your staff, great. But if not, don't waste your time too much with all of that. You will waste your time. Talk to people. That's where the money is your voice, your passion, and what you do, and the other person on the other side.
Leslie asks, where do you meet them? And I think she means sales leads or your clients.
Yeah.
Mine have partly come from my life, but now that I have more of a more robust a marketing and a sales process, I identify what I call like golden gooses. So these are people that can connect me to other people. So either they're highly networked with the type of people that I know could benefit from what I offer, or they are themselves in the business of connecting to others. So one example would be like HR systems that is sold like HR software. Those salespeople or account executives that are account executives for the right size of organization that I work with, and maybe in the area where I'm looking to get clients as well, I'll develop a relationship with them, show them what I'm doing, and then see if we can work out, like, is there a free workshop or something that I can give their people, or can I send a survey to the people, the accounts that they hold, so that I can become known to those people. And it's a little bit lower energy to get your name out to a few more people than like cold calling.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I also use LinkedIn. But another thing, just like, I don't know if I used to sell like Mary Kay and all that stuff back in the day, right? And they'd always say, start with your immediate family members, right? And start with your immediate Rolodex. And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, they have a point in their own pyramid of selling. But yeah, it's kind of start with the people you know and introduce your business to them. Then ask them, is there anybody else that you think I should be talking to? Can you do a strategic introduction with for me? Whatever it is, can you think of anybody in your network that would benefit from my services? Kind of asking those questions when you're talking to somebody will bring you more leads. If you have the money to buy leads, I'd say do it, but I didn't have money. So it was like, okay, it's either me or not. And then again, scheduling time in your week of when you're doing those kind of networking type calls for your business. And that's been every time I finish a call with a client or even my own current clients, I ask them, do you know anybody else in your network that would benefit from my services? And then, oh, I know so-and-so. I go, can you just put it together on an email? Cool. Okay, great. And then they do like a quick strategic introduction. And that's an easy way to gain a new person in front of you. It is a numbers game. It is a numbers game. So you have to there's these rules in owning your business. It is a number game. Britni and I were talking about, it's going to take about 5 years. So strap in, get ready before you make good like profit. Hopefully you're luckier than 5. There's just kind of these solid, like it is type of things that at least I've noticed, right, Britni? I mean, we were talking about this whole 5 years thing. I was like, okay, I'm in my year 3. I'm making decent money, but ultimately we do this to make like 6-figure contracts, right? And so it's still going to take a little bit of time. There's just only so much time in the day.
Laura says, one of my hesitations is the energy / time consumption that starting a business requires. I want that motivation prior to jumping into the risk. Ooh, what would you advise to her?
I would say, what is your passion, Laura? What do you love to do? What do you wake up in the morning to do? What can you talk about to people that you could talk about it all day? Like me, I could talk about research all day. Like, I don't know, many people would listen because research isn't sexy, although that is my hashtag, research is sexy. But, find, that one thing. If it's like IO, I don't know if any of you are IOs, but if in the IO field, there's so many different areas, right? We could do HR, we could do training and development, leadership, teams, coaching, Find a couple, like 5 areas in your field that you're like, yes, I like doing this. And then start kind of shaving them off, like, okay, this one, I don't know, and kind of like prioritize them. And really do it off your own business CEO gut is what I call it. Like, you're going to have to learn to follow that voice within you that tells you this is not a good deal, or that tells you, yes, do it this way. Start kind of getting in tune with that gut voice and find that passion. And I say, start there. That's the best advice I can do. If you're not passionate about it, it is going to feel draining, time consuming. I would not want that for anybody.
Ricky has a question. Can you both discuss building a firm, i.e. multiple consultants and practitioners, versus a solo practice? What are the pros and cons? Workload, selling, systems, etc.
This is a great question, Ricky. I think that if you can go solo, and probably that's going to happen at the beginning, there's so many applications right now that can do a lot of different things for us that don't require an actual person, right? That just requires a monthly subscription. And so finding those applications that can do that work can kind of take off those duties off of you. And I think that, of course, if you make money, it's all yours, right? Like, you take the profit and it's all yours, which is wonderful. However, if you do want to scale, there is going to have to be what we call a bench, which are people that you hire on as 1099s to be part of your organization as a bench member, and that you utilize for anything you don't want to do, right? You always want to, whatever you don't like to do, you should find someone else to do it for you. So if you don't like to do social media, that should be your first person on your bench that you look for, is someone that likes to do social media. But eventually that scaling is going to require you to do that. But I know a lot of consultants that are solos and they do really good by themselves. And they're coaches, they're executive coaches doing solo work, just them. And it works. It's really kind of based off, where do you see your business going in the next 2, 3, 4 years? And what type of people and skill sets you need to support your own mission. So for me, I have a bench of, God, I've never even counted it now. I probably have 5 people on my bench, no, 6. A social media, I have a virtual assistant, I have my researchers, but that's only because my contracts are requiring that kind of support. So you can always start off solo and stay there as long as you want, depending then when you're moving and how you're evolving, change it up. Don't be afraid to start a bench though. A lot of people in our business development group with Bold House, a lot of people sit there, and it does sometimes end up preventing them from getting bigger contracts because they don't have a team of people that they trust, that have the skill sets that they need. And so when they do want to step up and scale, they're kind of like, oh my God, I can't scale by myself. And then they kind of ramble and they have to, start like looking for people. So if you kind of grow and bring one person on board and, kind of do it at your pace, I think that's probably the best way of doing it. I hope that answers the question, Ricky.
Yeah. Or be a bench person if you want to see
Also,
what consulting's like.
yep.
Yeah, my experience, Ricky, is more limited. I did find out as soon as I gained a business partner that right away you have to systemize. You cannot sling it just on what's in your head anymore. And Dr. Patty, you said you're building an institute, and I am as well, although it'll be for a different reason. The Stokefire Institute will be coaches, executive coaches, consultants that are good at whatever their lane in consulting is. And then we'll also have a certification and track for internal consultants. And so these will be people that once we discover how exactly to implement the model in organizations, we know that it'll have to have coaching and consulting, and that those can't be the same people to be done well. So then we will have hopefully hundreds of people that are then, we're teaching them how to do what we do so that they can get more good into the world. And I know that for that to start, it will have to start out robust systems. Rick, you listed a few other things. Workload. Oh my gosh. I don't know how, but my workload feels worse partnering with someone than it did before. I think it's because we had to write everything down. I know that there are 7 basic roles in Stokefire as the organization, and I am doing 4 of them, and my business partner is doing 3 of them. So I have 4 full-time roles, and I feel it every day. My workday is roughly 4:45 a.m. to about 10 p.m. Sometimes longer, but it wasn't that insane when I was on my own. And now it is. Part of that is because 2022, we were doing research and development and working with clients. So it was everything. Selling. Yeah. Systemizing selling. I did it from my gut when I was on my own. And now, every step of the marketing and the sales process has to have, I know exactly what I'm asking, exactly what information I get to qualify them for the next step, which I wasn't doing.
And the thing is, you're not going to learn everything the first time, the first year. You're really going to learn a lot as you go, as you're getting in there, as you're talking to new people. You're going to change the way that you promote your business because I started, my initial clients were consultants, actual very tenure consultants that needed research to level up their credibility in what they were saying they were experts in. So I have a client that's an expert in, he's a consultant over almost 20 years. He's an expert in middle managers. That's who he does in consultant. That's his lane, right? Middle managers. So he coaches and trains middle managers. He has a whole training on that. But I would ask him okay, so you're an expert, but how are you different from the next expert on middle managers? And he was like, well, I have 20 years of experience. So my pitch to them was great, but do you have research? Have you looked at any studies? Is any of your stuff evidence-based? Is your credibility based off of research? And so that's how I initially sold my services to these consultants. And so I came in and did all the research for them. And now I'm going into corporate organizations now with the Institute. And so I still have consulting clients, but now it's evolving. So I think once you get rolling that first year, you'll see where you're kind of falling and into place, and then kind of go from there, whether you can stay solo or move and get a bench.
Yeah. Jen Samuel brought up something. She said one of her professors had her focus during grad school on using momentum instead of motivation, something she had never thought of framing her activities. It does make her feel effective and less anxiousness. And I love that advice. I can't run on passion because I have really deep depression. So I just keep moving and assuming the day is going to be full of screw ups and that tomorrow I won't make the same screw ups. Absolutely. Momentum. I am either chugging on momentum or I am focusing on how to restart momentum all the time. That's how I keep going.
I
All
love that. You know that the Colby assessment does measure everything on momentum as well.
right.
And so, what activities drain you and steal your momentum. Maybe I should rephrase it now that you mentioned that, Britni, about passion. When I say passion, and Brittany's right, it should drive your business, but you're going to need momentum and everything else and motivation and all that. The passion should be what is your business is founded from, right? Like, so I hope that makes sense when I say passion. Yeah, every day you're not, I mean, we can love and hate our passion on some days, which is true. Like some days I hate research, but ultimately that's what my business is founded on, is that passion. And then momentum, motivation, the next big deal, like those are kind of the things that should be driving. But some days you're not going to feel like doing anything, and that's okay too. It's your business. If you don't want to work for a week, you don't have to work for a week. It's just, that's the beauty of it, is that you have full control. But then also, if you don't work for a week, then that's less sales that you might make that week. So it's kind of
It'll
the
hurt in
balance.
5
It's a
weeks.
beautiful balance. Yeah. It's a dance. It's a tango dance, I think. I don't know.
All right. The money question has come up.
Uh-oh.
What to charge for services. Chelsea says she's reading up on it. Ricky says, I'd love to hear about rates too. This is a hard one in general. Yep. You have to believe you're worth it first. Yep. And then after that, we always try to charge value, not on cost or time. Do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to go first?
If anybody wants to open a business on how to charge when being a consultant, bam, you would have a business right there. Because nobody talks about this stuff. Like literally, like I'm always like, how do you make money? What do you charge? And everybody's like, nobody. And I don't mind telling people how I charge, how I make money. I mean, if we could probably share that. And I know that, I don't know actually why. I guess people don't want to share their secret sauce. Who knows? I don't know. But I have not found an organization, a group, somebody that says, this is what you should charge. So with that said, unfortunately, sorry, there's not really anybody that can guide us. I've asked other people in my field, right? In my research field, how much do you charge with a doctorate, with my experience, all that stuff. And kind of really I searched also on the internet based off positions, that if I were actually working for a particular organization, how much I would get paid that year. And I would break it up by the hour, kind of do it, and then kind of get like an equal medium type of number. But there's no magic number. It's really up to you. I do believe though, it says you have to believe you're worth it for sure. Do not start off your business undercharging. No, like you need to set your price at least, we call it a getting out of bed rate. Like, what is your getting out of bed rate? Like, okay, you would anything to, get out of bed. Is it $100 that'll get you out of bed? Or is it $250 an hour that'll get you out of bed? Like find your get out of bed rate and then kind of make that your medium, and find, higher and a lower, make that your medium mark. But don't come out undercharged because you want business. Someone told me, and a very smart mentor told me, there is enough business for everybody. There are enough messed up organizations and leaders. We have enough business. So don't get anxious, right? Oh my God, I have to find the next business. There's enough business for everybody. So collaborate with people. And once you have that close relationship, like Britni and I could talk about pricing. If she told me, Patty, do you have a proposal that where you have pricing on that you can share with me? Sure. Like happy to send her a proposal or numbers. It's when you have those close relationships with other business owners that you can say, hey, I'm really stuck. How much should I charge this client? This is the situation. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
So we have some more questions coming up about this, but I kind of want to stay on the original questions for a second. I want to share my first major screw up, undercharging my very first client.
Same here. I did it.
That was, yeah. And I'm like actually still paying for it. It's so annoying. And then also, so this hourly versus charging for the values thing, I reassess this at least once a year. I now have certain services that I will charge an hourly rate for, and it's $250. Like if you want me to do whatever it is, whether it's some kind of coaching for a specific issue that I already know the manager or whatever, and I know what needs to fix, it's going to be $250 plus travel if I have to go there. Like that's my hourly rate. It will go up over time. But if I'm going to charge hourly, that's what I charge. But for the most part, I won't. I like project-based work. This will probably have to evolve as we move into sale or more sales with our current consultancy. But essentially it's a contract that is a certain price, and then you have options that you can take or leave throughout, the length of the contract. My contracts going forward for the most part will either be 1 or 2 days intensives, or they will be 1 to 2 year contract packages. And all of those might have some elements of hourly if they choose. But past that, it's mostly gonna be values-based. Now, I did a ton of research and I got a lot of help from professors while I was in school on values-based pricing. And there are some excellent teachers out there on YouTube. There was one on LinkedIn. I just was obsessed with how he talked about it. It's not there anymore in the LinkedIn learning section. But essentially what it comes down to is if you're going to values-based price, there's really no way to figure out how to set your price for that specific client that you're after without talking to them. It's almost impossible. You have to be in the sales process. You have to understand what the problem is costing them. If it's like a retention thing, you know how to calculate retention, but you don't know exactly what's going on until you start talking with them. And once you establish trust, they know you're selling to them, they're going to be open about it. They'll let you know what's going on. And then also feel free to ask them if they've used consultants before and how it went and what they paid. I have never had anyone not tell me. The CEO will just say, oh yeah, we had this service, we paid this much. And I'll say, okay, well, my service covers that plus these 3 other things. And this is probably the ballpark where we'd be. And then they would say, yeah, that sounds good. Go ahead and send their proposal, or, oh, ouch. And then we talk about it. Values-based pricing is the way to go once you can get there, and you have to do it with your clients in the sales process. And it is terrifying. It's so scary. But they know you're selling to them. Once they figure out that you really do have what they need, like they want to get to that point too, where there's a contract and you're signing. So the money question we all know is going to come up, and you can just go at it, kind of starting the shallow end. Have you worked with consultants before? What did you pay them? How did that go? What all did that contract cover? You'd be surprised at what people will tell you.
That's such great. Yeah, that is so spot on, Britni. Everything you said. Also, another thing is, as I don't like to throw the woman card or the minority woman card, but unfortunately for me as a minority business owner woman, I have devalued myself and not thought I was worth a particular price until I had to change my mindset and say, no, I'm going to ask for this much, take it or leave it, whomever I'm speaking to. This is what we offer. Thank you very much. And that's it. For me, it was hard for me to get into the rhythm and comfort zone of saying, I charge this much, period. There was no well, let me see if I can, maneuver my, no, now I even say I charge this much, and I'm actually seeing if I want to work with you versus you want to work with me. Because there is also, as you get to a point where I've had a corporate client not pay me for 5 months. And I'm like, really? You're a big organization. You couldn't pay me 5 months. The next time I work with them, I'll be thinking about that and say, you know what? I don't know if I want to work with you, even though you're a big Fortune 500 company. So you're going to get to a point where you're I'm not playing these games anymore, and you just kind of you have to be strong in what you're charging. For me, it took me a while to get there. I think it had to do with me just, I don't know, my own Latina cultural scripts in my head that I was challenged with.
Yeah, I ask for 60% upfront now, as a starting point for negotiation, because I hate playing that game. I mean, I still have orgs that won't pay me for forever. It's so dumb.
Yeah, So you own the sales process. That's the key. Own the sales process from the beginning to the end. You state what your process is, how you do it, done. Like it, great. Don't like it. It's kind of like dating, right? Like, you like me, you don't like me, there's the door. Just kidding. I don't know. It's kind of the way I see it at.
Yeah. Laura says she wonders if consultants not talking about what they charge is similar to not talking about your salary. And then she says, do you flex your rates for clients to accommodate organizations of certain sizes?
I don't anymore. I did it in the beginning, but I don't anymore. This is my rate. This is what it is. Because I base my pricing off of the time and experience of me and my bench, that it is what it is. And I don't go back. I'll share with you guys a deal that I'm hoping tomorrow they're going to say yes on, where we're coming into an organization to do focus groups, as well as an executive summary of the results of the focus groups. The focus groups would include focus groups for the ERGs, the employee resource groups, the ERG leaders, and as well as the executive team.
I did have a data analyst once, and I forget if we ever actually pulled the trigger on it, but we had some kind of service we were giving at the time, and she suggested that we do it per head past a certain amount of people. And we're not so much assessment heavy now, although we do use it with the longer term contracts. But that is a way, if you're going to be working with like everyone in the organization or a lot of people in the organization, you can decide this is my flat fee. And then depending on how many employees they have past that, because that's extra time for you or your bench, it's a certain amount per extra head after that. We can keep talking about money stuff if you want. I haven't shared my screw up story yet. I'm happy to share that. But if there are more questions, feel free to either raise your hand or pop them in chat. I don't want to leave your topic out if we haven't touched it yet.
Chelsea, no worries. I said she didn't realize how little I was planning on charging. Yeah, if you don't talk about it with other business owners, you won't know. And so I always say, whatever you think, up to 20%. That's what they've told me.
All right, Chelsea, shoot.
Hi, so one of my biggest things is maybe because I was going to charge a little is because I still don't see my value yet. And unfortunately, it's mostly because I haven't had the type of experience I wanted to feel like I would actually provide as much value as maybe some more experience, consultants would be. And my husband said that all the time. He's like, yeah, you want to be a consultant, you need this many years experience. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I understand that that's how most consultants end up. They're like, oh, they're in business for like 10, 20 years and they decide to do, go out to business for themselves. But like, what if, my biggest fear is just what if a company.
Oh,
sorry. I pressed that. So what if a company like, a hiring manager, someone is just asking me for like credentials and you're like, what makes you think you can help me? And then what if I don't want to be caught with my pants down and like, what if I don't realize that my own value?
When you're looking at everything that you can offer, you need to think about everything you've done from here to the start of your career, right? Because even those initial things that you did in the start of your career are still giving value to what you're going to deliver to the client. So understanding all of that, right? Like they've told me, think about what you did in your first job. Think about what you did think about all that skill set, write it all down, look at it. If you really paint out your whole picture of your adult life and the work that you've done, there's a lot of value there. Now, the second part is, do you believe everything that you've just put on paper? And third, fake it while you make it. Like, you're the expert. No one's going to ask you, well, where's your credentials and where's your that? If they ask you that, then you can kindly say, you know what? I don't need to like justify myself to you, Mr. or Mrs. whomever, like I'm the expert in this, but they're not going to ask you, I promise you, they're not going to ask you. I've never been asked like, let me see your doctorate credential and diploma. Like, no, I'm a doctor, whatever. So I think it's, you have to do your own, you have to believe in it within yourself. And there is enough value. You don't need the 10 years of being a consultant or of having 10 years experience. A lot of the younger consultants are probably that much more informative to the corporate world than people with 10, 20 years of experience. So there is value you bring. You just have to identify it and really believe in it. And that's where it is. No one's going to ask you for your credentials. I've never been asked for my credentials. Britni, have you ever been asked for your credentials?
No. And I've been told straight up, stop getting certifications. Like nobody cares. And executive coaches say that too. Nobody cares like if I'm even certified to be an executive coach. One guy said he'd been doing it for years. He's like making six figures. And he said once in his career he'd been asked if he has any kind of certification, but he does a good job at what he does. I think,
Yeah.
Chelsea, you might be in a good spot for market research. So this is absolutely not sales, and you have to go into it knowing I am not selling. And talk with like CEOs of small companies, or like what you think will be your target market, and ask them for 45 minutes. The week between Christmas and New Year's is pretty quiet. You'll actually find some CEOs that'll say, yeah, I'll talk to you for 45 minutes and tell you what I think. Tell them like what you would plan to offer, or you are offering if you're already offering it. How you plan to offer it. So like, is this a 3-month thing? Is this a like you're on retainer for a year? Like what it is, and then ask them, tell them what you're thinking about the price. Or even before that, you can say, have you ever hired a consultant? Like, would you need a consultant? So you can see if they would even need your services. And if they say yes, and if they've hired someone to do it before, ask them what they charged. Yeah, and feel free to say, this is what I think I would charge, or this is probably my low end that I would start out at. Ask them if they think it's fair, or like if you were actually putting in a proposal, like what they would negotiate back. If you do it purely on market research, there are so many people that are willing to share with you.
True.
And lend, like it is flooring how many people want to see you win, people that don't even know you. But
Right.
if reach out and ask for their time, like be very specific, 45 minutes to talk about this thing. Yeah, you're going to find people that'll help you validate that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And I did want to mention one thing about the credentials. I asked that and saying that I'm still fearful of it. And recently I actually listened to a podcast about, starting a consulting firm just because I thought, they would share very interesting information. And one of them, the host specifically said, we do not go into doctors' offices when we're sick asking to see their degree.
Exactly. It's all about how you come out, the confidence you show. And I think if you're not there yet, doing market research, like Britni said, is the best thing. I did a lot of that during my dissertation, saying, hey, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, can I speak to you about the Hispanic workforce? I'm a student, And yeah, everybody was no one ever told me no. You're right, Britni. People will say yes, even if it's for 30 minutes, and just get that help that build and inform your business and your own confidence in what you're going to be able to offer.
Yeah, just know exactly what questions you want answered.
Yes.
So that
Come
when
a
you
little
ask them
prepared.
for the time, they know exactly what they're committing to you. I will share my story of my big flop. So my first client was an accident, which I understand is like the most massive, luckiest thing ever. I told them kind of what my business was, but what my heart really was. And they said they wanted to kind of be the financial backbone. Like they wanted to be my first client and get me kicked off well, so that I could do the work with like the smaller orgs that couldn't really afford my services. And I charged them, I think it was $7,500. Now that's something I would probably charge $75,000 for. Same services. And because I wasn't great at writing contracts and didn't have experience and didn't ask questions because I just run through the forest and get bloody and bruised, it got drug out for like 2 years. I just did the last piece of the contract earlier this year, and it was like back in 2019 when I first started with them. And I didn't build in anything like, if you don't get me X document by X time, then it's this much extra money, like extension fees, stuff like that. I had no safety net to come back on. The client I love for who they are, but now they know me as this really cheap consultant. And while I've transitioned into, I actually had additional contracts with them between this really long drug out one, where I did price myself closer to what I'm worth. I'm now kind of in that bucket with them, and I'd love to be a long-term consultant for them, but I don't know that I can jump into the bucket where I belong with them. I have no idea. Listen to Dr. Patty when she says, don't underprice yourself when you're starting out. Do the market research first. Because then, once you have the confidence and you match it with, I actually have data that says the market can handle me at this price. then you're going to start off on more solid footing.
Maybe now that it's a new year, you could say, it's a new year and my prices have gone up and this is a new pricing for 2023. Could possibly a way of, you know, it was great, but it's just a different ball game now and I'm at different level in my business. Might be another way. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's tough. That is tough, tough, tough.
When you run your life like I run my life, there's a lot of hard lessons. All right, we are at 2:00. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Patty. Thank you for speaking with all
Thank you
of us.
guys. Thank you. Always happy to connect. I put my LinkedIn in the chat. Please feel free to connect with me. Happy to always chat as well. You know, whatever you all need, happy to discuss. Yep. There's so much we could talk about, right? We didn't even go into contracts and legal. I mean, and accounting, forget it. We'll need to do another one, Britni.
Next year.
Next year.
Yes. Good to see you all. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you. Happy holidays.